Welcome to Market Shapers, a podcast about harnessing capitalism for good. I'm Inder Singh. Over the years, I've had the privilege of working with incredible people, building products, forging deals, and shaping markets that have impacted millions of lives. On this show, I sit down with the leaders, innovators, and behind-the-scenes deal makers who've changed the way markets work, often in ways most people never see. If you're a capitalist, I'm going to challenge you. I'm going to challenge the classic view that markets left alone yield optimal outcomes. If you work in nonprofits, advocacy, public health, and international development, I'm going to challenge you too to address this skepticism of markets, profit motives, and business, showing how when designed well, these forces can effectively scale social impact. Through the podcast, we'll explore how markets can be deliberately structured to drive access, reduce costs, and scale innovation. Hi, everyone. This is Inder. I'm really excited to kick off the Market Shapers podcast. This show is about harnessing capitalism to drive social impact and the tactics behind how it's done. I created it for a simple reason. Some of the most effective market shaping techniques of the last 2 decades were never documented in a way that others could reuse. The results are known, but the how is not. This podcast is an attempt to change that. 15 years ago, I had the honor of being a part of a small group of people who brokered deals between more than 70 countries and 22 suppliers of medicines. Those deals delivered something that still feels remarkable. Prices came down by 30 to 90%. Billions of dollars were saved, and millions of people gained access to life-saving drugs because of those deals. We took the market from high price, low volumes, to low price, high volumes. In the words of President Clinton, we were moving it from a luxury goods market to a grocery store market. We worked around the clock to get the job done. But we never documented how it got done, the tactics and the lessons we learned. Over time, I came to believe that if we could do this in global health, we should do this in many more places. In healthcare here in the US, in education, energy, and the environment. Places where society would benefit enormously if markets worked just a little bit better. One of the most encouraging things I found while building this show is that there are people doing market shaping outside of global health. It's particularly true in clean energy and climate. And a lot can be gained by doing a little work to understand what's working, what's similar, and what's different. We're going to talk to the people who did the deals, who analyzed the markets, who engineered the incentives, and who sat across the table when the stakes were real. Now, before we go any further, I want to ground this in reality. Economists love the elegance of markets. Supply meets demand, price balances the two, and everybody wins. But real markets are messy. They're shaped by power, policy, information gaps, and luck. And they're built on assumptions, the symmetry of information, rational behavior, functioning institutions. And these things don't always exist in the real world. In global health, you learn this the hard way. Life-saving drugs exist, but the price tag keeps them out of reach for millions. Companies aren't villains, they're rational. The customer who needs them most can't pay. And so a trap forms. Higher price, lower volume. Buyers can't afford the quantities they want, and suppliers can't produce enough volume to bring prices down, and we get stuck in an equilibrium, just the wrong one. Across sectors, health, education, and climate, similar patterns repeat. Technologies that should scale don't. Incentives that should align don't. And entire sectors wait for an invisible hand that never arrives. Market shaping begins when someone decides not to wait. When we ask, can we redesign the underlying system so a market that benefits the public more can form and flourish? Now, I want to be clear. I'm a capitalist and a proud one. I believe capitalism has been an engine that has lifted people out of poverty. But I also believe that capitalism and markets sometimes need to be guided and directed to achieve better outcomes. The invisible hand simply isn't enough. There are only a few moments when markets need intervention. The first is when a critical innovation exists, but the market structure, often high price, keeps it from scaling to the people that need it most. Today, this is called a high price, low volume trap. The second is when the innovation does not exist because the market signals are too weak to justify an investment, even when the public benefit could be enormous. And the third is when the innovation exists, the return on investment is high, but the buyers still hesitate because the benefits spill over to others, to the public in general, and also to competitors. And the question quietly becomes, who should pay? So what is market shaping? I like to think of it as the art and science of bending market forces towards the public good. It's not charity, it's design. Fix the incentives, cost, risk, and demand, and you can unlock enormous social value. In practice, market shaping means things like lowering cost through volume, tech transfer, or smarter manufacturing, reducing risk for suppliers through guarantees, pooled procurement, harmonizing product selection, or harmonizing the requirements needed to enter the market in the first place. Move 3 levers: cost, risk, and demand, and you flip a market from fragile to flourishing. There's a concept in market shaping that I think is central and fairly unique. There's usually a third party that is playing the role of the market itself. My colleagues use different terms for this actor. Some call them a quarterback. I like to call them a market orchestrator. The role is multifold. They develop a shared vision. They diagnose what's holding the market back from achieving that end state. And they identify and deploy the incentives that will move individual actors and the overall market towards that better equilibrium. Sometimes that equilibrium is when the price is lower, but profits are higher, and everybody wins. Sometimes it's when a new technology becomes available sustainably for those who need it. So why is this hard? There's many reasons why this is hard, and to be clear, the theory is easy. It's MBA 101 in my opinion. But I'll give you one reason now why the implementation is hard. It's partly because you have to work across sectors. Working in industries like education, energy, and healthcare, they're multi-sectoral industries. Private business plays the key role, but so does government, and so do nonprofit organizations. In these sectors, government doesn't just regulate, it buys. It spends on R&D, and so do nonprofits. I'll tell you a really short, simple story. Early in my career, I gave my first multi-sectoral talk. This was a meeting convened by the World Health Organization, and the audience was a cross-sector of the global health ecosystem. It was a short presentation, not a particularly important one, but at one point, I used the word profit. And I watched 2/3 of the room physically slump back in their chairs. They completely disengaged. Because the word itself sounded misaligned with their worldview. I learned quickly, if I said reasonable return on investment, that was acceptable and the whole room stayed engaged. These two terms mean exactly the same thing, but it was a lesson in working across sectors. The public, private, and nonprofit worlds have different language, worldviews, incentives, and culture. And if you can't translate across, you can't align incentives to change the system. This podcast is about the strategy and tactics of market shaping. We'll explore how markets can be intentionally designed to massively drop the price of life-saving drugs and diagnostics. How market shaping shows up in climate where we need new technologies and new supply chains, and how incentives, risk, cost, and demand can be restructured to enable markets to form or flourish. In this season, you're going to hear from people who have been behind the scenes.
If you are going to engage in bringing the supply side and the demand side together as a kind of trusted intermediary, the key to that is credibility.
Alan Staple will take us behind the scenes to the negotiations themselves, what happened and how it played out. If you like war stories about negotiations, you'll love this episode. Rich Powell will tell us how buying clubs are spurring new clean energy technologies and how deal-making technology has brought unexpected buyers into the mix to support the agenda.
The policy wins come and go. The corporate demand signal in the background, we think, can send a much more durable market signal.
We'll talk with Di Ellis, one of the few people who's used market-shaping approaches across multiple sectors, starting in global health and now in climate. We'll talk with David Rippon about a watershed market-shaping initiative, dropping the price of tenofovir, one of the most important drugs in the battle against HIV/AIDS. Today, around 30 million people use tenofovir. You'll hear from Kim Carnahan on how to translate climate ambition into contracts that companies can actually sign.
Altruism is not going to create green markets. We aren't going to have green markets because the planet needs it.
And you'll hear from others. If you're interested in how capitalism can be harnessed to help tackle the big challenges ahead, listen on. This is Market Shapers. I'm Inder Singh. Thanks for listening to the Market Shapers podcast. I'm Inder Singh. If you enjoyed the show, please like it or leave us a review and subscribe in your favorite app so you don't miss the next episode. Market Shapers is produced by me with help from University FM. Special thanks to Renaissance Philanthropy, Griffin Catalyst, and the Digital Harbor Foundation for their support.